Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Please excuse my voice. I think I am losing it slowly. Anyway, it's time for another market update, and today we're going to, as always, take a look at the general market situation, what's going on with load volumes, rejection rates, diesel capacity, and then we'll dive into the details for dry vans, reefers, and flatbeds. Now, today, I'm doing it a little bit differently, and I'm making this market data more accessible to you guys. So as I'm going through it, I will tell you where to access these charts. Ready? Let's go. All right, as always, we're going to start with the general overview, taking a look at general load volumes, rejections, and spot volumes and prices. So week over week, the general volumes, meaning in the general market, not just spot market, those increased by 17.21%. However, rejection levels are still falling, unfortunately, and are currently at 6.49%, down by almost 5% from the prior week. Now, in terms of spot volume and spot market rates, we're looking at what happened last week compared to the week before, which was a holiday week, Independence Day. So week over week volumes increased by almost 41%, of course, because they usually go down during the holiday. But the spot market rates decreased by about 10 cents per mile in general for all equipment types. Now let's take a look at those diesel prices, and these are some of the charts you will be able to access on my website. If you go to truckingmadesuccessful.com and click on the market data on the top menu, you will see a blog post where you will see these charts and you can hover over them and see exactly what the data says. So number one, diesel price at the pump. So as you can see, the most expensive diesel prices are California, Washington, and Oregon, as well as some of the Northeast. The cheapest prices are in the middle of the United States. Now, if we take away IFTA and take a look at raw diesel prices, the map doesn't really change much, right? It's still Oregon, Washington, and California that are still the most expensive, just the West Coast in general, as well as the East Coast. And the cheapest one, it looks like it would be Illinois at this point. Speaking of diesel prices, on a national level, what we see is that week over week, we saw about a 2.5-cent increase per gallon. Month over month, it's a 20-cent increase per gallon. But year over year, diesel prices are still about 12.8 cents lower. But yeah, diesel prices are still kind of climbing. Now the question is, what is going on with that capacity? And capacity, or at least the number of net MCs, it decreased by 343 carriers week over week. So more people left the industry than came in. All right, what I want to do now is, before we dive into the specifics for dry vans, reefers, and flatbeds on the spot market, I want to show you a little chart I made, which is also accessible on my website. So if you're curious, you can always go there and take a look at it more closely. But let's take a look at the way the rate per mile on the spot market has changed since the beginning of the year for dry vans, reefers, and flatbeds. So let's go ahead and take a look at dry van data to start. So week over week, dry vans saw about a 17-cent per mile decrease on the spot market, and this is comparing the week ending on July 11th to the week prior. So the reason this happened is because the holiday week, July 4th, usually increases those rates because a lot of capacity leaves. So now it came down again, and now dry vans are about $1.95 per mile. Year over year, however, the rates are about 3% lower. Volumes week over week increased by 42%. It's just making up for the losses that happened during the holiday week. But year over year, volumes are 51% lower. So now in terms of the heat maps that I make, again, this is also something you can now access on my website, but let's take a look at where those dry van loads are. So most of them, as you can see, are in Texas at 5,262 loads there. Second most populated load state is California, 2,517 loads there. And then in general, the West Coast is not great. The East Coast is a little bit more manageable. Now, what about those load to truck ratios? So load to truck ratios, you can see that the highest load to truck ratio, where there are more trucks than there are loads, is South Dakota, 3.85 loads per truck. Now, if you look at the map before on the website, you will see that there are almost no loads in South Dakota, 208 in the whole state on average. So yeah, it's not going to be very easy finding a load there, but the load to truck ratio is still high. Wyoming, Montana, they have high load to truck ratios, and it's not because those are good areas. They don't have any loads there. It's just that there are less trucks than there are loads. But in general, the South seems more or less doable for dry vans. Like Texas has almost 2 loads per truck. Oklahoma has over 2 loads per truck. California is 1.71 loads per truck. So yeah, I would say maybe some of the Midwest and the South for dry vans at the moment. All right, now let's take a look at what's happening with reefers. So reefers also saw a pretty significant decrease on the spot market, 23 cents per mile down, bringing them to $2.40. Now, year over year, rates are about 4.5% lower. Volumes week over week increased by 11.6%, and year over year, they're about 20.5% higher. So that is good. So let's take a look at what's going on with those reefer loads. And you can see that California is the one that has the most of them, followed by Texas. But also some of the Midwest and the East Coast, like Pennsylvania, Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, Ohio, Georgia has some loads, North Carolina has some loads. But the question is, what does the load to truck ratio look like? And if we look at the load to truck ratio, we can see Idaho, South Dakota, Delaware, West Virginia, and Arkansas. Those are the ones that have a pretty nice load to truck ratio there, with Delaware being around 4 loads per truck. But be careful, because you have to look at the load to truck ratio, which is now accessible to you around, because those deadheading trucks will dilute that situation. All right, let's finally take a look at those flatbeds. So flatbeds week over week also saw a nice decrease, even though they didn't increase that much during the holiday week. It was half a cent, but they did see a decrease of 6 cents per mile week over week. Rates year over year are almost 1% higher, so that maybe is a good sign. Volumes week over week increased by 48%, which is normal. Year over year, the volumes are 143% higher. Now, before you start wondering, is this a mistake? It's not. It's just because of the time slippage that happens year over year. So we're just comparing week 27 to week 27 last year. But if we compare just the week after July 4th versus the week after July 4th last year, the actual increase in volume year over year is about 27%. All right, let's take a look at those load to truck ratios and volumes, starting with volumes. Most of the volumes are coming out of Alabama, with about 5,600 loads there, followed by Texas. But in general, if you take a look, the loads for flatbeds tend to be in the South. Now, what about load to truck ratios? Now, I know this looks like a very scary map. The reason it looks so light, with only Mississippi being dark green with 12.59 loads per truck, is because Mississippi is such a big outlier. The reality is, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama are still some of the best places for flatbeds to be. In general, I would say you want to get a good rate, you go to Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, or Louisiana, or the east of Texas, right? Like the Dallas-Fort Worth area or so, maybe even Oklahoma or Joplin, Missouri, which allows you to deadhead within 150 miles to Arkansas. So yeah, guys, this is the update for this week. I'm going to continue posting every week from now on these maps so that you guys can access them and so that you have a better understanding of how the data changes week over week. I'm looking to potentially add more data to the market updates, but this will come with time. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining and watching today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep learning. See you in the next video.